Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today I'm coming at you with a Friday special as Cory Booker has clarified his stance on the Safe Banking Act, and we've gotten some developments elsewhere in the cannabis world. So before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And then of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and then there's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about how the industry has evolved, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and then take advantage whenever you're ready. And after what we saw last week with Cory Booker saying he will do everything in his power to lay down to stop the Safe Banking Act from getting passed, well, Cory Booker clarifies he supports the cannabis banking bill, but says it's a sweetener to pass legislation. So we're going to look into this. Senator Cory Booker has recently taken a forceful position against passing a cannabis banking bill in the near future, but it's not necessarily because he opposes the bipartisan proposal itself, he clarified on Wednesday. Instead, the senator said that he feels that holding off on voting on the banking reform could encourage his colleagues to support more comprehensive legislation to legalize cannabis and promote social equity. So it sounds like he's saying that give some companies more time to give them lobbying dollars, and they might change their mind and actually pass this comprehensive bill sooner than later. Unlikely though still. Like the draft bill that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senate Finance Committee Ron Wyden recently released. So we're going to watch this one clip which summarizes everything that he says, but just keep in mind that in this video the sound and the mouth are not in sync, so it's very painful to watch, but it's just a minute and it will highlight everything that he has said in here.
On that front, so you can make the argument that declining the Safe Banking Act might be letting the good get in the way of the perfect. If you are kind of like you and I looking for the more important restorative justice components, I mean, how strong are you opposed to the Safe Banking Act, since it does seem like it would support maybe all cannabis businesses? I know it doesn't address the restorative justice piece in kind of the crime that we've talked about, but do you at least concede that businesses are helping in that front and bringing some people along for the ride as well?
Oh, first of all, don't get me wrong. I support the Safe Banking Act. I think it's a phenomenal bill. I'm one of these folks that is out here working with cannabis industries, not only across the state of New Jersey, but around the country. I feel like I am one of their greatest champions when it comes to ending the nightmare of prohibition and the ridiculousness of so many businesses having to operate in cash. It increases danger, not to mention what you talked about, which is easing access to capital for a lot of folks. So please, I support this completely. But if there's
So it's nice to hear that different take from him, and it's interesting to read that Booker has caught some flack from industry stakeholders since the unveiling of his legalization bill, the Cannabis Administration Opportunity Act, because he's repeatedly pushed back against the idea of passing more modest bipartisan legislation first that would simply protect banks that work with state legal cannabis businesses. So this goes on the idea that his stance last week sort of made him the enemy of all these powerful monetary forces that are lobbying for this change to happen. So he took questions on Twitter about the issue on Monday, with several people arguing that his steadfast opposition to advancing the Safe Banking Act before broad reform is ill-conceived, because the former measure stands as much stronger chance of passing this Congress and would represent an incremental yet significant policy change, which is absolutely true. This came days after Booker vowed to lay himself down to block any other senators who seeks to pass cannabis banking legislation before the body approves comprehensive cannabis reform, igniting the controversy. But in his latest interview, the senator offered some clarification on his perspective. So for me, a good bipartisan bill, like the banking bill, is a necessary sweetener to get people to move along on the equitable justice elements that are really critical, Booker said, explaining his strategy for threatening to block banking for the time being. I agree, we need to get that banking bill done. So it's a powerful statement coming from him after what he said last week. Adding, I'm hoping that all the industries out there that know they're going to make tremendous profits join me in standing up for what I think is the greatest act of patriotism there is, in saying, I'm not going to put my interest alone, I'm actually going to look out for my fellow Americans, which I 100% agree with. So good on Booker, one of the few leaders in the Senate that is actually showing that he's with the American people, which is likely going to help give him a longer career. But, you know, that's real leadership, and we do rarely see this out of politicians who, you know, want to stick to what they know as opposed to being forward-looking and helping, you know, lead change in the right direction for the American people. He adds, I'm actually going to pledge to them that I'm going to fight for those people who are in economic devastation because of a nonviolent cannabis charge, that I'm going to make sure that we take care of everybody. So it's obviously easier said than done, but again, better to have some people in the Senate with this intent than none at all. And big thank you to Jason Spatafora, the Wolf of Weed Street, for calling out Booker and bringing this conversation to the surface, because without some of these tweets and pressure from people, we likely wouldn't have gotten any sort of this response from Booker. And if you want to watch the full interview, it's about 8 to 10 minutes long. You can grab grab this link below from Yahoo Finance's live on Wednesday. It starts at about 4 hours and 45 minutes. I think it's 8 to 10 minutes, but again, it's very painful to watch just because the sound and the mouth movements from Booker's side are not in sync. But regardless, this article basically tells us everything we need to know about it. And then on to this, after I published my Wednesday morning video, Cannabis Wire reports that Amazon is now officially lobbying on cannabis. So that is a big step in the right direction. While the global online retail giant said in June that it would support the MORE Act, a bill to end the federal criminalization of cannabis, it formally registered early Wednesday morning. Now, all we know is that they're lobbying for the MORE Act as of right now. It doesn't say anything about SAFE because it doesn't seem to need much more lobbying than it's already gotten. And as for the comprehensive bill, it's still a draft, hasn't actually been introduced yet. But I imagine when that actually gets introduced, there's going to be a lot more Amazon firepower going behind that one as well. But regardless, this was great to see on Wednesday. While congressional lawmakers seek to build support for amendment to protect all cannabis states from federal interference. And this came out of nowhere, which was surprising to see. And at first glance, I wonder if this bill could provide some other sort of alternative language that would protect banks from federal prosecution if they were to work with state legal cannabis businesses. I'm not sure, so if you know any more, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know, but regardless, let's learn about this bill. As a bipartisan group of congressional lawmakers is circulating a letter to build support for a spending bill amendment they're introducing this week that would protect all state and tribal cannabis programs from federal interference, going beyond the existing measure that shields only medical cannabis states that currently enacted into law. The amendment and its supporting Dear Colleague memo, which were shared with Cannabis Moment, is led by Reps Earl Blumenauer, Tim McClintock, Eleanor Helms-Norton, and Barbara Lee. The lawmakers explained that the proposed amendment to spending legislation would add language preventing the Department of Justice from using any funds appropriated by Congress to enforce federal laws regarding activities that are legal under state, territorial, or tribal law with regards to cannabis, regardless of whether the cannabis laws are recreational or medicinal. This language has been proposed in past sessions, passing the House last year and in 2019, but it was not attached to the final appropriations legislation sent to the president's desk under GOP control of the Senate. Now the Democrats have a slim majority in the chamber. Advocates are optimistic that it could finally be enacted. As it stands, a spending bill rider has renewed each year since 2014 that offers the protection to states with medical cannabis programs, so this amendment would expand that protection at a time when more and more states are opting to legalize cannabis for adult use as well, not just medical. As 4 states, Connecticut, New Mexico, New York, and Virginia, legalized for recreational purposes this year alone. So what the text says, none of the funds made available by this act to the Department of Justice may be used with respect to any states or districts to prevent any of them from implementing their own laws to authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of cannabis. While again, none of the funds made available by this act will be used to prevent any Indian tribe from enacting or implementing tribal laws that authorize the use, distribution, possession, or cultivation of cannabis. So it does not seem like that provides any sort of extra safe harbor language, but again, it's great to see congressional lawmakers actually coming together and taking some sort of solidified action, as these are more incremental steps toward the change that we want to see. And this is from Todd Harrison, as there is a deep dive into Senator Schumer and Friends' cannabis bill with a former FDA council member. Some of the quotes from it: current bill doesn't stand a chance. They know it doesn't have the votes. Wanted to start the conversation, so that seems to reiterate what we all already know. Adding FDA likely bootstrap state-level oversight, and SAFE could get 60 senators, which we've heard many times that SAFE has the votes or could get the votes, or it likely in time in the fall will end up having the votes. Regardless, this was nice to see, but then we ended up getting a little bit more information from Max Mausner, adding the BMO CAOA deep dive with Jonathan Havens of Saul, Ewing, Arnstein, and Lair. There's a lot in this bill I don't think has a chance of passing. There is no way this bill will pass with teardown of vertical integration. Just to get conversation going, still need 10 plus GOP plus few Dem votes for the comprehensive bill. Now there's more though. States will have power to control licensing and sales within their own borders. Bill will allow but not necessitate interstate trade, require state-to-state trade pacts, plus can't prohibit transport through borders of non-pact states. FDA would promulgate labeling and dosing regulations, but they are more concerned with health claims than anything, would set minimum level for states to then implement many states in excess of that minimum today, would not mandate pharma GMP as GMP different across industries. The bill has not even been formally introduced, and they think will require a lot of negotiation, and overall process is likely to take years before fulsome federal regulation, mid-2023 implementation. Yikes. This leaves lots of time for states' MSOs to continue as is in the meantime, which is actually the best case scenario for the U.S. MSOs in these states as they continue to execute. But all that means is, again, so important to remember that we don't need complete federal legalization for these MSOs to have success or for our investments to see some success in time, because ultimately ultimately the next catalyst for us and investors who are already in is the Safe Banking Act, which will put these U.S. MSOs on major U.S. exchanges and give them the access to U.S. capital that any other business in any other industry would get. So remember, that is the next catalyst, and it's possible that from then until we actually see full legalization, there's going to be another big climb, drawback, and another big bull run. That's very, very likely because this is such an incremental process and it's going to take so much time. But regardless, the last best thing I wanted to add, both Booker and Wyden have walked back comments against standalone SAFE in the last few days, so it's possible we see that bill back in focus with tweaks in the fall, which goes in line with him saying SAFE could get 60 senators, which goes in line with saying everything that we've heard about the lobbying has led to getting enough votes. So in time, we just have to be patient and look out for SAFE in the fall to be that next catalyst, after the catalyst of these MSOs releasing their earnings in August, which are no doubt going to be very attractive for investors that know fundamentals. But lastly, just want to present another generational wealth opportunity, this time by Business Insider. 4 top Wall Street analysts share the cannabis stocks to buy right now. And it's interesting because these are all companies that you cannot invest in on major U.S. exchanges. You need to have access to the over-the-counter markets or the CSE in Canada. But they are Cowan's pick, Green Thumb Industries. So if you wanted to read a little bit more, I'm just going to pause it here. You can pause it here to read a little bit more about them. After that, we've got Cantor Fitzgerald's pick, Curaleaf. If you want to read more about them, you can check. And I believe these price targets are in Canadian dollars because they look similar to what, actually, they're all different price targets from different investment firms, but Cantor Fitzgerald's plus Curaleaf at 26. So this would mean, though, Curaleaf 26 USD, I believe. So just wanted to clarify. GTBFI, so this would be $45 USD. And then if we go down to Jefferies, Cresco Labs, see this one is the Canadian ticker, 36 Canadian dollars. So it's a little bit different, but worth noting. You can pause here if you want to read a little bit more about Cresco. And then Viridian Capital Advisors, they like Air Wellness with their price target. This one again in USD if it's using the OTC ticker. So if you wanted to pause on any of these, you can read a little bit more about those companies. And so lastly, before we go, just wanted to show off my MSOgang t-shirt that finally arrived in the mail. I'm very happy to be sporting it. Although I'm Canadian, I consider myself North American, and I think the sooner that Canada, US, and Mexico can come together on this, the sooner we're going to see the great American growth story actually turn into reality. So just wanted to add, though, Canada for Good is where I ended up getting this, the community giving brand for US cannabis consumers. And this was an e-commerce shop set up by none other than Todd Harrison himself, the Todd father, one of our OG sources and a former Wall Street trader that decided to leave that Wall Street life and trust the plant. And seems like he hasn't looked back since, and I haven't either. So I just want to thank you, Todd, for providing, your judgment and your research on Twitter so that someone like me who wants to learn to invest can go there and actually learn from you, because I've learned a ton. And so why consider supporting Canada for Good? After years of a misguided war on drugs, U.S. cannabis is poised to help solve some of society's greatest ills. That is a fact. From new tax revenues and fresh employment opportunities in a post-pandemic world to social and criminal justice reform, research, and education, this is an exciting time for the new industry. At Canada for Good, we aim to empower the industry and give back to support the causes most relevant for you. Simply choose your charity at checkout, and together we can help the cannabis community affect positive change through, positive change, right? So as part of the foundational effort, our printing fulfillment partner will make a pledge to donate $5 for every item purchased as well to the charity of your choice from our list of options. So you can see they've got some t-shirts, sweaters, mugs, and then hats with t-shirts as well from quotes from some of the top people in this industry. Ben Kovler, Sometimes New Facts Are Hard. That's a great one. We've got Brady Cobb, Buy the Ticket, Take the Ride. And then lastly, Jason Wild, They Can Pay Us Now or They Can Pay Us More Later. All of them great pieces of attire that you definitely want to get now so that in the future when you wear them, anytime you can sport it, you can look back, know that you supported a good cause and help change the status quo for the better. So that is it for today's episode, folks. Just want to add something in as we got some developments, but I will be back on Sunday with a bunch of news. So hope you found this valuable, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down there so I can answer them and we can have a discussion. Other than that, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it, subscribe below if you don't want to miss any more, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis News. Have a great weekend, everybody.